Three, two, one. Welcome to Football and AI, episode 8. We are gradually making progress, small by small. We're getting closer and closer. So maybe we might think of doing something special for episode 10. I guess we'll have that conversation with Shi and we'll see how that goes. So, as usual, the main part of the furniture on this show, as always, is Dr. Oluseyi Akindele, the man behind the AI. Sheyi, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be back here once again for another exciting, weekend of actions and predictions.
Lovely. And also, our special guest today, interestingly, is someone that I've met before. I didn't know he was the one until he sent me a DM. Is none other than Clinton Samuel, or otherwise known as Clinton. Clinton. So clean something that is clean. Clinton, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. I'm okay. Looking forward to the weekend games.
Are you in Lagos or you're in Port Harcourt?
No, Lagos.
Oh, you're back in Lagos. Oh, okay. Good to have you on the show. So, last week we had Kemi on the show, and luckily for her, she didn't embarrass us because at least she tied with the AI. So, I'm sure there's nobody that wants to come to this show to be the first person that the AI will defeat. So Kemi got 6 points and the AI too got 6 points. Interestingly, the game started with the AI getting the correct score in the first game. So I started wondering and thinking, okay, this looks interesting. We might have a blowout. And they got 3 points. And I think it was the Wolves game, which was predicted as 2-0, and the result was 2-0. So, but somehow Kemi was able to rally and result in a 6. Interestingly, the final 2 games of the weekend were completely blew both the AI and Kemi away in terms of the results. Manchester United versus Arsenal was another one that both the AI and Kemi, obviously, well, I'm sure most people predicted United will win, but Arsenal put up a really good performance and got a result. So last week was 6-6. Our record remains 9, and that's between Son Atinuke and our young star Ubani. So that 9 points is our highest score so far. So who knows? Clinton might just be able to either defeat the AI and then probably surpass the final score. So, Shay, quick one to you. So, let me, as I always ask you, what's the adjustment that you're making this week?
Well, after a while of, after about 7 matches gone, there really isn't too much adjustment to be making other than adding previous week's results to the mix to see whether it will do some other mathematical computation to see whether we'll get better results as the matches are being played. So obviously, so really we didn't do any kind of tweak other than just adding the results, the 10 matches of last week, to the table, to the to the data set, and we trained again. And let's hope this week is better. I just hope that with a name like Clean Thing, I hope you have not come to clean everything away.
We hope he's not looking to do a major clean out. I'm sure we are not going to allow that. He can't come and clean us out completely. Shay, one interesting start. And last week, we're talking about the whole Virgil van Dijk injury and all that. And interestingly, Liverpool have gone 5 games, won all the matches that he's been absent in. And Interestingly, there was a great debut for a youngster, Nathaniel Phillips in central defense. He made my team of the week, and he was a fantastic addition in a game where I predicted that West Ham was going to be able to steal a draw, especially considering the form that West Ham were in. So let's go into one of the areas that I said we're going to discuss, and that is form. West Ham went into that game with form. Prior to that game, I think they were undefeated in their last 4. But they came up against a Liverpool side who, quote unquote, struggling defensively, but somehow found a way. Now let's look at form. The teams with the worst form in the league today include Burnley, who play at 6:30 away to Brighton, Sheffield United, who go away to Chelsea. Interestingly, the two teams with the worst form, and their form is actually identical, go away to Brighton and Chelsea, respectively. Now, Shay, for a team like Burnley, winless in 6, they only have 1 draw. They haven't won any game this season. They go away to a team like Brighton, who have also only 1 win in their last 6 games. Now, critically, and this will go down to the point where we discuss head-to-head. Burnley have a good record against Brighton. Can we judge by virtue of this record that Burnley could go to Brighton and get a result?
Well, to be honest with you, head-to-head, past records, especially as it relates to football, it really, the weighted average isn't that high. So it looks more at form, at current form, at your home and away record. So head-to-head really isn't considered at all for this kind of thing. It's just going to look at your form and who's likely to win the game based on statistics on ground. So one of the things that you first check, especially, is okay. So since the beginning of the season, despite the fact that Burnley hasn't been winning, how many shots have they been having on the average per game? For instance, on target, how many saves the other opposition keeper has made? How many times have they hit the bar? So those kind of things you look at and you see, okay, perhaps they've been unlucky in certain regards, or when you look at it, maybe perhaps they've actually been really poor. Maybe even the results are even doing them a bit of justice. So that's it just takes into consideration pure unadulterated statistics, nothing with head to head scores. It's just going to be purely on statistics as it relates to Burnley and statistics as it relates to Sheffield United as well as their opponents.
Okay, so do you by any chance have the stats for their shots on target? Because I do remember Burnley probably had just 1 shot on target last week when they played Spurs.
They didn't even have any shots on target.
Oh, they didn't have any shots. So somebody sent me a piece yesterday that was talking about expected points, expected goals.
Yes.
Expected goals obviously is as a result of the number of shots on target that most teams have. So are you saying that also forms part of the parameters that goes into arriving at a result? And if that is the case, do you have such a figure that you can share with us?
Now, unfortunately, I am just the AI we are using is just for demonstration purposes. It's not a professional thing. What the betting houses, what they do, they use these kind of figures. Now, when I was training the AI model, the mathematical model, I couldn't get statistics on expected shots, expected goals, expected saves. So I just used a model based only off of statistics I was able to scrape off the internet, which is mainly shots on target and shots off target.
Do you have that?
And I have shots on target. Yes.
Can we compare Brighton's shot on target and Burnley's shot on target in the 6-7 games they played this season?
That would mean I would have to open up the giant spreadsheet I'm using. But what I will do, maybe we'll dedicate probably what we can do is during the next international break, we could have a session, with your viewers on how AI has been able to, the data. Maybe some of your participants that are knowledgeable especially in the sporting areas, could point out certain figures that would probably make the AI a bit of better predictor so we could have a look at the spreadsheet and the data used as input into the mathematical model, so I can actually show live the inputs and those weighted averages and how the AI typically arrives at those numbers. So we can actually do that during the next international break for your viewers.
Which is next week anyway. Okay, so Brighton Burnley, first game of the weekend, so that's out of the way. We will come to the prediction part subsequently. So the teams with the best form in the last 6 games, I think, is Spurs, which is the team Clinton supposedly supports. I always find this strange when I hear people support teams that are not the usual ones, but hey, it's always a breath of fresh air. Spurs have won 4 of their last 6 games. I think that's pretty much impressive, and they've only lost 1 game, and that loss was on the first day of the season when they lost at home to Everton. Now, interestingly, the team that's occupying the second position on the league right now, Leicester, have won 4 of their 6 of the last 6 games, but they've lost 2 of those games. Now, the team that's occupying top spot, which is Liverpool, have also won 4, but they've lost 1 and they've drawn 1. So, very quickly, let's now put that side by side by the team, which is the big game of the weekend anyway, Manchester City taking on Liverpool. So, Man City, on the other hand, have only won 3 of their last 6. They've lost 1, which is the only loss they've lost this season anyway, but they've drawn 2. Now, one of the peculiar things about this season is that with a total number of 7 games played so far, I think this is the first time in a long time that everybody has lost a game, lost at least a game.
1 game.
Quite unusual, very interesting, and it is something that is making a lot of people look at this season with corner eye and say, can we have another Leicester type season?
Like Spurs.
Like even Leicester themselves, even though it is well known that Shea does not rate Brendan Rodgers in any shape or form.
To be honest with you, the season is going to, like they say, water will soon start finding its level. It's still going to be between Man City and Liverpool at the end of the day. We're talking about long, this is a marathon. Yeah, some of these teams, how are they going to cope? At least Liverpool and Manchester City over the years have been able to cope without. Last season Laporte was out for Man City. They somehow managed to cope and came second. Liverpool have now lost
Van Dijk. Have you lost Shea there?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. You froze for a second there.
Okay, so we wait to see how Leicester and Spurs will cope with, a hurricane or is someone getting injured or one key player. Let's see how they will cope with that. Because obviously in the season you're going to have ups and downs and all that.
Oh yes.
But to me, I still believe that the title is still going to go to one of Liverpool or Man City, even though I am tilting towards Liverpool, obviously because I'm a fan. Yeah.
No doubt. Let me go to Clint. So Clint, you support Spurs. Do you see a title in the horizon for Spurs this season, especially with the caliber of a manager that you have now? Is a winner and is very desperate to be the first manager to win a Premier League title with 2 different teams. Do you see a title at the end of the horizon for Spurs this season?
Well, for some fans, they think Mourinho can do it. He can bring it here. Like, it's been so many years. But for me, personally, I don't want to think that far for now. I just want to be realistic and take everything slow and steady. Like, first of all, return to the UEFA Champions League, just as we have been consistently regular there, unlike last season. So I believe a top 4 finish would be very, very massive for us right now. although we do have the team to compete with the likes of Man City, Liverpool, and we've been able to improve the squad depth from the recently closed window, signing of OBA, Gareth Bale, Vinicius. So I still think we can actually go far, but I'm tipping for a top four finish.
Top four finish and any kind of trophy would be suitable for
Europa would be
Spurs,
nice.
right?
Europa would be nice.
Europa would be nice. I actually think it's a trophy that Spurs can win, depending on what happens to Sevilla. Sevilla is struggling somewhat in the Champions League, but they found a way back against Krasnodar last week. So if they don't drop to the Europa League, then Spurs might have a chance. Now, let me ask you this. When you want to go into predictions, what are the things you consider? I always ask guests on this show, what are the things they consider when they are making predictions?
Well, for me, I consider form. I believe form is by far a better, rates your chances better. Then sometimes you can also consider the head-to-head, but that's like the secondary part. The primary part, sorry, is the form. And sometimes, even when I have to check the form, I still have to check the home form and the away form because sometimes we have teams that perform generally when they're at home and then they flop away. So if you just use the general stats of form, you don't know how many matches they've played at home. Maybe they could have played a couple at home, then get some wins, and maybe just draw points away. So I believe form, and you also have to check on news too for suspended players or injured players.
That's interesting because, for instance, talking about form, everybody knows Manchester United has lost 3 matches this season. And the funny thing is the 3 losses were at home. Away from home, surprisingly, United have done a tad better. I think Brighton are another team who also at some point really had a good away record. But at home, I think they haven't won in their last 6 home games.
Just
so,
like Spurs
yes,
too. It's
yeah,
like
just like
Spurs, right?
Spurs.
So Spurs, we've drawn 2 games at home, lost 1 and won 1. And the last game we played, which was 2-1 against Brighton, you saw how hardly fought that win was. But
Yeah.
on the road, we've actually been very, very great. I think we averaged 4 goals per game. 2-5 against Southampton.
You just had to go there. You just had to go there.
1-6 against Manchester United and 0-1 against Burnley. So we've been able to pick 2 points from a possible 12 at home. But then you have 100% on the road. So some of these things.
That's interesting. 2 points from a possible 12, but 100% away from home. That's interesting. Shay, let me come to you now. So last week, let's look at the interesting or is it surprising result from last week. Let's see. Okay. We, aside Arsenal, Manchester United, which everybody predicted United will win, I think the only one that looks, the last 2 games, interestingly, went completely sideways. So Fulham, West Brom, overwhelmingly, we all predicted to end in a draw, but somehow Fulham found their way and put goals past West Brom. I was quite impressed. Leeds, everybody except Kevin felt it would be a draw. Felt Leeds will defeat Leicester. Leicester put 4 past them. A huge anomaly, wouldn't you say so, Shi?
It is a huge anomaly, and that's the beauty with something like predicting football. I mean, if it were very easy, supercomputers, people that operate supercomputers will have made so much money. It's unlike, because I work in the field and I see that whilst when you apply mathematical models in other fields, for instance, if you do work with, say, if I come to your street and maybe say, for instance, PHCN appoints, say, my company to come and do a predictive analytics of how much electricity you're going to use on your streets in the next 1 week. Now, if I have past data, it's easy to predict, because that's pretty much set in stone. I mean, there's so much electricity you can use. There's so much electronics you have in your house, so it's easy because those are objective models. But when it comes to things like predicting football, sports scores, it's played by human beings. I mean, if you the previous week, Arsenal lost at home. They have never lost at home in how many years to Leicester. Then they go away to Man United, where they haven't won in, and then, you know, exactly. And those are the things. I mean, those are the models you feed into computers, and they try to tell you that, of course, what are the chances that Arsenal will go to Man U, Old Trafford, and win, or what were the chances of Leicester going to Etihad, what's it called, Emirates, to win? So that's why football is interesting. That's why football is a people's sport, and we're just trying to use computers to support or to see if it's possible. And again, I'll say again this week, the first thing I learned about football that my uncle told me, he said, football
it's not mathematics
at all. It will never be, it has never been, and it will never be.
Well, interesting. Now let's go to injuries that I think potentially are supposed to tilt things. Last week we spoke about the Virgil van Dijk injury, and interestingly, Liverpool have won all the games they played without him. Even went away in the Champions League to my side chick Atalanta and put 5 past them and kept a clean sheet. Most importantly, because there are not many teams that keep a clean sheet against Atalanta. They're a team that at least will score a goal.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So now, the key injury for this week has to be the injury to Danny Ings of Southampton. Finding form, doing very well for himself, one of the top scorers in the league so far, also creating as well and contributing assists to the cause. The game, Everton at home, he had 2 assists in that game. Now, they went away to Villa last week, put 4 past Villa, scored a goal, was involved in a lot of the play, but is injured now. What kind of, he scored 5 goals out of the 14 goals Southampton have scored so far this season. So that's 36% of the goals Southampton have scored. So what impact would that kind of player being missing have on the Southampton and in the potential prediction from the AI this weekend?
Well, to be honest, I mean, you only need to take a look at the team they are facing, Newcastle, and Newcastle isn't exactly renowned for, the attacking prowess. So yes, it may play an impact, but I doubt that it's going to affect them, so much, because they play as a unit. I mean, with James Ward-Prowse hitting those dead balls the way, he delivered those balls last week, I think that they may be too much for Newcastle. And just to quickly touch on your last point about AI predictions and all that, remember that there was this stat you read out last week about Wolves not scoring the first half.
In the first half. I said, well, 22 of the last happened? 28 games, they scored in the first half. Yeah.
Exactly. That's how some predictions can make you look yard. They are lies, they are damn lies, and then you have stats. So.
Oh god. No, that was a stat that for me was a bit worrisome, especially for how good Wolves look in terms of the way they play and everything. And then you find out that 22 out of 28 games that scored in the first half. I'm like, so you mean in only 6 games you scored in the first half? So it was a bit worrisome for me. And that's why I had to put it out there. So note, they are more of a second half team. Well, let's go to the games this weekend, and we have a lot of really good games coming up. 2 teams trying to find form, but let's talk about the guys at the bottom of the pyramid. Brighton take on Burnley. Looks like a really good game. Let me look at let me take some of the stats from that game. Brighton, for instance, they have goals in them, but they have lost 6 of their last 7 Premier League matches. Burnley have failed to score in their last 3 Premier League matches. Now, another interesting thing is that, like, Burnley have a solid record at the Amex, that's the American Express Stadium, which is where Brighton play. But both teams are living in the on the wrong end of the table, and we expect another encounter. But you have to say, Sean Dykes going into this one, Brighton have failed to win their last 7 home matches. On that point, I might be tilting towards Burnley getting a result. Let's go to the next game for Friday. Southampton taking on Newcastle. Newcastle, on the other hand, are undefeated in their last 3 games, if I'm not mistaken. Got a very good draw, a deserved draw in which Wolves defeated Everton surprisingly last week. Southampton, on the other hand, are unbeaten in 5, and they've won 4 of those 5 games, put 4 past Aston Villa last week in a huge surprise for me. The early kickoff tomorrow is former table toppers Everton taking on Manchester United, 2 teams who are winless in their last 2 games. Let's look at stats on that. Like Clinton was talking about, Manchester United have won their last 6 away matches. Everton, on the other hand, are undefeated in 14 of their last 15 home matches. Was it 2 seasons ago? Everton particularly decimated Manchester United, defeating them 4-0. So don't be surprised if Everton put a lot of goals past Manchester United. It'll be interesting to see what happens with James Rodriguez if he gets to start. Let's look at the other big game of the weekend, which is Manchester City hosting Liverpool. First and second for the last 2 seasons, going head to head. Liverpool, more or less, looking solid. City are also picking up form, but still finding it hard to score goals. No Sergio Aguero. Jesus seems to be back. Scored in midweek in the Champions League. Man City are unbeaten in their last 8 matches in all competitions, and they've kept a clean sheet in the last 3. So they found some form of defensive stability. Liverpool have won 5 in a row since losing Virgil van Dijk. That's, for me, as really impressive. And with City being 5 points behind Liverpool, let me take on Clint. Clint, what can we expect from Man City hosting Liverpool, knowing that Liverpool are 5 points ahead, and the impressive record that Jurgen Klopp has on Pep Guardiola? I think he's the manager that's defeated Pep Guardiola the most. I think defeated him 9 times or something crazy like that. What can we expect from that game? So we go into the predictions.
Well, for this season, since the start of the season, I've not been impressed by how City have played. They have been just not City, been unable to score goals. I don't think if they've scored two or more goals in like 4 or 3 games now. So they've not been really impressive going through the whole season. And for Liverpool, well, still have defensive issues at the back. Since the loss of Van Dijk, also Alisson was out, but he's back now. And I think Fabinho might actually be fit for this game. So if Fabinho is back, I still expect maybe not so much defensive problems for them. So I actually just look at Liverpool getting a victory here, even if it's at Etihad.
All right, so let's go straight into the predictions. Sheyi, are you ready?
Absolutely. Let's fire on.
Clinton, are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
All right, so let's go into it very quickly. So we'll start with the game today. Brighton, Burnley. Sheyi?
2-0 for Brighton.
2-0 Brighton.
I like the form of Lamptey is actually quite impressive.
Quite impressive.
So,
It's a doubt, even though I still stuck him into my fantasy Premier League team in case, because he's been doubtful a few times and still found a way to play. Clinton, Brighton, Burnley.
1-1.
1-1. 1-1.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go completely off because I'm actually going for a Burnley win 1-2. And I'm basing my prediction on the head-to-head. Southampton, Newcastle.
2-0
See?
Southampton.
2-0 Southampton. I'm not sure where those goals are going to come from. Clinton, Southampton, Newcastle.
Looking at the loss of Danny Ings, and if you check the head-to-head between Newcastle and Southampton, I think Newcastle have won the last 3, and they are unbeaten in about 3 games or 4. Also, they just defeated Everton. So I think I'm looking at 1-1 again. I think both games ending in a draw tonight.
1-1. Both games ending in a draw. I'm also going for a draw in that one. Southampton. I don't know where Southampton will get the goals from. Without Danny Ings, Che Adams is not the most reliable goal scorer.
To have a free kick.
He needs to be more consistent. Jidepo is another goal scoring option, but not very consistent. So to the early kickoff tomorrow, Everton hosting Manchester United. Shay, how do you see that one?
I see a draw here.
A draw.
1-1.
1-1. And for some reason, I agree with you on that one. I'm also going for a 1-1. Clinton.
United to win 1-2.
United to win 1-2. Jeff will probably run away from Soccer Pub if this happens tomorrow. Crystal Palace Leeds United.
2-2 draw. Yeah.
2-2. So you note that Palace have only scored 3 goals this season. I'm going for Leeds United to win 1-2. Clint.
0-2.
0-2 to Leeds. 0-2 to Leeds United. I agree totally. I think Leeds will defeat Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace are all over the place. And they can score. Chelsea, free scoring Chelsea, defensively solid Chelsea, clean sheets in 5 straight games, looking really good. Che, how do you see Chelsea, Sheffield United?
Well, I think Chelsea would win 1-0. That's what the AI says.
1-0.
Yeah.
1-0. I think Chelsea will win 3-0.
A lot of people, you know.
This one, Chelsea will beat them. Chelsea will beat them.
Chelsea will win, but it would be a lot closer than.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that because City could only score 1.
Yeah,
and I think they lost to Liverpool 2-1. So
exactly.
Defensively,
2-1.
Exactly. So defensively, I think they did solid. They just need to look a lot better going forward. They need to convert their chances, and they are terrible. And then they spent a huge amount of money on the striker. Clint, Chelsea, Sheffield United, 2-0 Chelsea.
Yeah.
All right. West Ham, Fulham, a London derby.
You are going
Fulham
for Chelsea win too?
Yeah, I'm going for Chelsea win 3-0.
3. Oh,
West Ham, Fulham.
Okay. 4-2 to West Ham, according to
4-2. Wow. A lot of goals in that one. I'm going for 2-1 to West Ham. I think West Ham should kick on now with the amount of games that are coming their way. But then, David Moyes, you just never know. Clint.
West Ham 2-1.
West Ham 2-1. West Ham 2-1. Okay. Next game, West Brom host Spurs. Clint. What say you for Spurs?
1-4.
1-4. Aha.
Yeah.
If my own is that in this one I have mentioned now, Son should just score hat-trick for my FPL. He's my captain.
Yeah, it says 2-3. West Brom 2, 3.
Spurs 3. Wow. 2-3. Well, I'm going for 1-3. 1-3. I'm going for 1-3. Another good game that I think should be enjoyable for everybody to watch: Leicester City taking on Wolves. I'm
Yeah.
going for a 1-1 draw in
1-1
that
here.
one. Oh, you're also
Yeah,
going for
1-1 here
1-1.
as well.
1-1.
Yeah.
1-1. Okay, Clint.
Very tough call, but maybe Leicester just nick it out. Maybe 2-1.
2-1 Leicester.
Leicester.
2-1 Leicester. To the big game of the weekend, Manchester City taking on Liverpool. Shay.
The AI has gone for a draw here. Really. 1-1.
Let's go for a draw.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Let's go for a draw here. 1-1.
Wow. Clint.
City 1, Liverpool 2.
City 1, Liverpool 2. And I'm going for a 2-2 draw. I'm going for a 2-2 draw. I can't, for some reason, I can't separate both teams right now. And the final game of the weekend, remember, Aston Villa got their Premier League survivor confirmed by defeating Arsenal. But Arsenal look like they're in really good shape at the moment. Arsenal hosting Aston Villa. I have gone for Arsenal 2, Aston Villa 1. But Oguchi will not be happy with me, but hey. Shay, what say you?
3-1 Arsenal.
3-1 to the Arsenal. And Clint, even though I know you don't like Arsenal, what is the result?
Arsenal 2-1.
Arsenal 2-1. So that's about it. So as we always do on this show, we look at where we have agreements. Obviously, the first two games of today, we only have agreements between myself and Clint in Southampton, Newcastle. Myself and the AI agree on Everton, Manchester United. I like the fact that myself and Clint agree that Leeds will win Palace. Everybody believes Chelsea will win Sheffield United. Everybody believes West Ham will defeat Fulham. Everybody is going for a Spurs win. Only Clint is going for a Leicester win against Wolves. Only Clint is going for a Liverpool win against Man City. And everybody is going for an Arsenal win against Aston Villa. Interesting. Shay, parting shots.
Well, let's hope for a good week for the AI. I'm waiting for the day the AI will defeat the first human, and probably will pop some champagne. And as
I'm
we go
waiting
into
for
the
that too.
international break, I hope this is the time
For that tilt to happen.
But
All right.
we only have to wait till Monday to find out.
All right, Clint. Final words.
Promises to be an interesting week. We have many matches to look at. Everton, United, City, Liverpool. So let's see how the table changes. And hopefully, as Dr. Olu said, he said we hope that water will finally balance because the season has been so dicey. So let's just hope everything gets back to normal. And also, I'll be hoping the AI gets some of the predictions right, so we can just focus on some mathematical formula and predict on it.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you for joining us, Clint, and I wish you the very best. Have a lovely weekend, and to all those that have joined us, thank you for joining in. Have a lovely weekend. Bye for now.
Thank you.